everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Talk of the Town. This is a podcast where we talk about all things media, creators, business, and more. My name is Tristin. I'm the host of the podcast. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you're returning from previous episodes of the podcast, thank you so much for stopping by and listening to a brand new episode of the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to Ashwath from a company called Social Currant. They match impact organizations, nonprofits, and purpose driven brands with creators on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube in order to drive awareness, get out votes, and increase impact in society today. I think that this is a really great conversation. It blends, activist plus, the world of content and influencing and really channeling for good. So make sure to go check out them in the show notes down below.
Over $1 million in payments to creators over the last year and really focused on getting creators paid around mission-aligned causes. Excited to share my experiences, hopefully answer any questions and provide some advice on what we're going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming on to the podcast. So, in terms of things, kind of talk about how you came up with the idea to do Social Current. Because I think it's really unique what you guys are doing in the creator space.
For sure, yeah, happy to share it. So I started Social Currant about 2 years ago as an agency because I was spending time as a consultant within nonprofits, social impact startups, all of these, for good organizations, trying to help them figure out how to reach young people on emerging media platforms. And so started as an agency. We soon started doing influencer marketing for clients and discovered in the short term and the long term, it was better for these mission-aligned organizations to work with the creator, build a relationship with them, and work with them on paid collaborations to reach their audience, to get their audience rallied around this cause. And so started doing a ton of influencer marketing. And as we were doing that, we realized we were doing the same thing again and again. We were, brand would come to us, they would say, this is my mission, this is my campaign, can you help us find the influencers? We would then go through our database of influencers. We would select those influencers based on their mission, based on who was interested in working with the brand. We then match them with the brand. We would then do the contracts, the payments, all these logistics. And we were doing the same thing again and again. And we realized, hey, I'm sure there's software out there for this. So we went around, started looking for software, and realized that while there was software out there, none of it was focused on mission-focused organizations. So our clients and us had to go into these platforms. We didn't know who the creator was. We didn't know how to vet the creator. We had to, email all these creators. And so there wasn't really an understanding of what the creator cared about, who they cared about, whether they actually cared about the cause that the organization was working in. And so we decided to build our own platform, which would be an opt-in network of creators that talked about their causes, shared their story, told us about what they want, who they wanted to work with, and then we would match them with a nonprofit. So long story, but that's kind of how Social Current came about.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, really, fantastic, beginning. So, in terms of things, what are some of the lessons that you've learned so far from Social Current? Because I think every founder, when creating, a startup, they all have different things that they learn. What have you learned so far, in creating Social Current, and as well, what's surprised you the most?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many learnings, and I'm sure I'm going to continue learning. I'm learning every day as building this. We're still in an early stage startup. We're not, we haven't made it. We're still building, and so I'm learning a lot. I think the biggest kind of surprise in learning, which I think I expect a little bit, but not to this extent, is the importance of community. I think everyone talks about community. Everyone, it's a buzzword, but I didn't really consider community and partnership as the biggest growth driver for us, but also the biggest kind of reason we're doing what we're doing. I think for us, we're part of different communities. So we're part of the brand nonprofit community, we're part of the creator community, and for us, everything we've done has been for those communities, and those communities have given back to us, and that's really been our strategy, is serving our clients the best, building a community for our clients and giving them value outside of just the platform. And then the same for the creators. We try to help our creators do anything. obviously we're helping them with these paid brand deals and negotiate contracts and everything, but like if a creator has a brand deal outside our platform and they're trying to figure out how to negotiate it, whether the terms are right, we'll let them reach out, ask us, and we'll help them. And we'll try to, we're just trying to give back to these communities. And I think the importance of that is incredible and something I think we're going to continue investing in and want to invest in. But I think something that, really has been a learning experience about the importance of this community.
I mean, absolutely. I agree with you that there are so many creators out there, so many brands out there who are trying to understand how to work with influencers, and it's still like the wild west. Like I talk with a lot of creators, and it's always like, how do I rate myself? How do I do this? What's a good deal? What's not a good deal? It's a whole hassle and a half, especially even myself as like someone who's a creator and also a talent agent. It's like, how do I help people and make sure that things are the best that they can be for somebody? So I definitely agree with that sentiment. Um, following up from there, what are some of the things that you've learned that are sort of good and bad with the creator economy right now?
Yeah, I think for us we're a specific subset of the creator economy. So we're in the impact space, and I think like we're still at the early stages of the impact space. I know generally like brands, for-profit organizations have invested in creators for years, and it's really common. But I think in the impact space, it's still a new strategy that we're exploring, and so I think there's a lot more that the impact space can explore around the creators. And so I think from the in terms of the good, I think like there's so many creators out there, and over the last year, like over the last 2, 3, 4 years, I think who gets to become a creator has become more accessible. So anyone can become a creator now, more than ever before, with short form content. And so I think that's really good because it gives opportunities to people who may not have had opportunities. So I think that's good. I think the bad is I think there's been a shift a little bit from community building for creators. I think it's a lot harder to build community on short form platforms than it was before. And so I think like creators need to start thinking about how to build community, where to build community, and things like that. So I think it's not necessarily bad. I think it's something that we're starting to see creators work on, starting to see companies work on, and I think more people will work on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the point in time with the podcast where I'd like to turn the tables over to you, let you become the host, bring up topics, questions, or anything that you want to talk about. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, happy to. I would love to learn more about kind of your role in the creator economy. I know you've been really involved, so would love to hear more about that and just generally like how you're seeing creators react to 2023, all this news around the recession. Like, how are you seeing creators react?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, for those that know me, I've been in the creator space for the last 10 years, which is I think this year will actually be 11 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. And I think there's still a lot of challenges like that are happening with creators, and it's sort of I equate it to a hamster wheel. Is like you fix things and you fix things and you're just still like spinning on the wheel,
Right.
because every year something like literally the same thing will continue to happen and happen and happen.
Right.
I think right now what you're seeing a lot of in the creator space is a lot of brands that are really like understanding how social media and influencers should work versus like taking a traditional marketing approach. Um, the one thing I see a lot of influencers doing that I really appreciate is creators taking the ability of their audience and starting to leverage like their brand and build startups, build products, do all these sorts of things. Like, you see Noah Schnapp, who came from Stranger Things. He just did a huge startup that raised like, I want to say almost like $500,000 on a crowd fund. You look at people like Charlie D'Amelio, who had a meteoric rise on social media, now running a venture capital company. You look at people like Mr. Beast, who just does not miss with content, does not miss with business opportunities. And so I think that there's also a lot of innovation and improvement happening in the creator space. There's more opportunities for creators to monetize. There's more opportunities for creators to spread content out and connect with people.
100%. I think that's really awesome. I think, and there's also been so much growth in the space, and there's also been a lot of validation in the space. I think in 2022, and hopefully more in 2023, with people really understanding how creators can launch businesses, how creators are entrepreneurs, and I think like that's also really exciting to see around the creator economy moving forward. Do you have any like big predictions? Any things that you think will happen in 2023 or 2024 around the creator economy?
Um, I mean, I think the biggest predictions I've had, and I've talked to a few people about this, is that I do see YouTube being the predominantly big player in every aspect of content. You know,
Right.
whether it is, I mean, YouTube's killing it right now with long form content, with short form content. But I think what you're going to see is a really big dip with places like Twitch, where a
Yeah.
lot of creators say, "Look, I understand I have a a full time career through streaming on Twitch, or I'm Twitch partner, but that isn't cutting it anymore. When you're looking at the ad splits, the subscription splits,
Right.
um, I think TikTok needs to really find ways to improve itself. I keep telling someone that they're dragging their feet with this music subscription service that I think would be beneficial. Having an audio aspect for podcasts would be a tremendous thing. Um, I think with creator platforms in general, whether it's a merchandise aspect, whether it's a community, social media, let's say like a fan base or a Discord or a Twitter, you really have to find ways to um, cater to content creators, because unfortunately that's not happening as much. Like Discord is great for creators, but there's not really a lot of um, room for innovation, a lot of room for like scaling. Twitter has predominantly had a problem where it's like, people are still waiting for ways to monetize on Twitter outside of like, charging brands to post.
Right.
Um, and I'm going to make a very big prediction here and say that I think, if anything, the one platform that people are still sleeping on is Instagram. Um, and that's because Instagram still like is the king of grabbing people's attention.
Right.
Um, I think in comparison, I've even told a good friend of mine who works in the tech space, I see Snapchat dying after this year, like them
For
just
real.
shutting down the entire company because everyone has replicated their business model. There's nothing new to
Yeah.
Snapchat. They stopped doing original programming. So it's
Right.
like, what is there that I can't get on a TikTok or, something else?
Right.
I also think one of the biggest other predictions I have is a lot of creators are going to stop um, leveraging or being sort of targeted by these media aggregators like a Barstool or a ESPN,
Right.
um, because the problem is you give them rights to your content, they don't pay for it, they monetize it, they can do whatever the heck they want, and it's like it's a poison pill for creators.
Right. No, 100%. And on the YouTube, kind of coming back, or YouTube was always there, but kind of reigning supreme. I think they also check back the VidCon sponsorship, for example, this week from TikTok. And I think like YouTube still is powerhouse with the long form, but also the short form now. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how they monetize the short form, because I've been reading a little bit about that. And yeah, I think Instagram still has a really active user base. I think their stats are still there, and I think like definitely there's less conversation around it, but people are still on it. And on TikTok, yeah, they need to figure out, how to help people monetize. And also, I think like I'm seeing a lot of creators use TikTok for top of the funnel and then driving people to other platforms to maintain their community. And I think that's also a good use of the strategy there. So, yeah, I love the productions, interesting all around.
Yeah, I mean, I want to preface by saying to people watching or listening to the podcast that I have no inside information on what any of these companies are doing. This is just what I believe because, frankly, there's really a big change that's needed to have. I was surprised that Snapchat or just Snap as a company survived after last year. You know, um, and so like I definitely think that it'll sort of be really interesting to see what happens this year. Um, and hopefully things go well and who knows, things might not. I don't know. Um, Other than that, is there anything else that you want to touch on or talk about?
I mean, it's been a great conversation and happy to answer any more questions. I guess, like, what are some things you learned from 2022 that you're looking at applying in 2023?
A couple of things I learned in 2022 is to really sort of just focus on myself a lot more. Like, one of the things that I've kind of done over the last like year or two, especially since the pandemic, was um, I stopped like focusing as much on like this sort of go mentality with content, with running the esports team that I do, all these other things because um, like I talked about it that in the summer of last year I took a 3 month break from content
Right.
and I felt like just completely rejuvenated. You know, um, I mean I still take you know 1 to 2 week breaks here and there when needed, but I think also taking a lot of time to just enjoy life is a big lesson I learned because like um, anyone that knows me knows I historically really only go outside to go to like concerts and events, and where I live, there's not a lot of those. So like, I think I'm gonna be doing like a lot of traveling this year, hopefully. I one thing I've learned is like tone down the credit card spending a little bit.
Yeah.
The last like 2 years since or last year or two since I got a credit card was kind of like a reckless endeavor. Um,
Yeah.
and so um, I think that those are some. I think the other big lesson I've learned is primarily really to just like focus on what I can do and like not really try to overburden. I guess I think those are the big three things I've learned. Um, Other than that, my still big thing that I continue to saying every year that I need to learn, but I don't is to somewhat be a little bit more humble every single year as time progresses because um, being in a space where everyone is constantly ego checking audience, people look at your amount of followers, subscribers, whatever the case may be, and comparing you to others, like it really does get into a real like mental trap for sure.
No, 100%. That's some awesome takeaways.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as things go, like, what does the future look like for you? What are you excited to do? And like on top of that, um, like what are you hoping to achieve this year?
Yeah, I think like we're really hoping to launch our platform publicly this year. We've been building for the last 3 months. We're gonna, we're pushing some key features in the next 3 months to make it, version one usable. And so I think really excited to push that. And we've got a few interesting pilots going around like incentive programs for creators, trying to incorporate, an AI model into our matching algorithm. And so like we've got a lot of cool tech we're building that I'm excited about this year, but also raising our pre-seed round around it to be able to build all this. We also got some cool clients that we're excited to run campaigns for. So overall, like, I think we have a plan for 2023, and now, I'm excited to execute on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish you luck with the raise and everything. Um, I mean, trust me, like I've been itching to get back to doing startup investing, and um, what's funny is like I literally like I think was it a month ago called my credit card company, got my credit limit lowered, and then like like a month later, everyone's like, oh, we're ending our raises like 3 months early, and I'm like, I hate you all. Like, like I can't invest in like six companies all in one time again. Like, it's not entirely possible. I wish it was. But um, I guess from there, like, in terms of you personally, like, what does the future look like for you? What like what's going on in your personal life that you feel comfortable sharing, that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, I mean, nothing really. I'm just focused on building. I think that's the big thing for me right now is I'm devoting 100% of my focus to this company, and I'm excited to do that. I think, I'm doing a lot of learning. I'm hoping to explore more of the kind of tech space in terms of learning as a non-technical founder. So personally, that's what I'm excited about is, learning, maybe traveling a little more. That's the thing. But I think really, like, I love building this, and that's the learning I'm doing building it is personally helping a lot. So just kind of looking forward to doing that.
I mean, absolutely. I guess from there, the sort of final question I have for this podcast is, say there's somebody out there who, just like you, trying to figure out what to do with their life. What are three pieces of advice that you can give to somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I think like the biggest thing I learned from 2022 is the importance of consistency. So the first thing I would say is like be as consistent as possible. You don't have to do 10 things every month. If you do one thing for 10 months, that's better. And so I think like the biggest thing I would say is like be as consistent as possible. The second thing I would say is like relationships are super important and build the right relationships for the right reasons, just to build a relationship, not to get anything. And the final thing is like try to figure out what your like North Star is, like what's the one thing you care about that affects everything else, and then just center yourself around it. For us as a company, that's been how much we're paying creators, and so like every action is determined by how much payments are being made to creators, and that trickles down to our revenue or impact. And I think like figure out that North Star for yourself, for your company, and do that. So consistency, importance of relationships, and figuring out the North Star is the three piece of advice I would get.
I mean, absolutely. And as far as where people can find you or Social Current on social media, feel free to plug.
Yeah, we're at Social Current, current with an A, on all the platforms you probably are on. Feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. Happy to connect there. That's my primary platform, but also happy to connect on Twitter. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how it can be helpful. And yeah, stay in touch.
Absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast. I know you're incredibly busy as I am, so being able to finally hop on it and do a chat with you is amazing. For those listening or watching the podcast, thank you so much for listening to a new episode of the podcast. Really means a lot to myself and everyone that works on the podcast. There are going to be some new updates I have coming out very shortly for some things with the podcast. But if you want to follow the podcast on social media, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Talk of Town Pod. And with that being said, my name's Tristin, host of the podcast, and I'll see all of you in the next one.